Hare Krishna. So we are recapping. Actually, we'll recap briefly from chapter 1 and also chapter 2 and chapter 3 before we can proceed further. So maybe we'll just start with chapter 1 has these sections. So preparations for war. So all the Pandavas and Kauravas, they're all assembled on the battlefield, ready to fight. So there's discussion about how various, sounds are made, conches are blown, etc. Then verses 14 through 20 are signs of victory. So what are the signs of victory? Arjuna, there are a lot of signs of victory for Arjuna. First of all, Krishna was present with Arjuna. So that was a definite sign of victory. Along with that, there was, Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna's chariot. Then the chariot itself, which was given by Agni, was capable of conquering all directions. Like Krishna himself was present, and the conch shells they blow. The conch shells they blow are called transcendental, divya. Right, so these are 4 signs of victory for Arjuna. So he was very sure that, and Prabhupada quotes a very nice verse, Jayastu Panduputranam Esham Pakshe Janardana. On whose side Krishna is there, such people will definitely be victorious. And victory means what for us? Victory doesn't mean material things. Victory means to achieve the final goal of life. The final goal of life is not to earn money or make property or name, fame. This is not the final goal of life. Final goal of life is actually to achieve the service of the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world. So these signs indicated that Arjuna will succeed in his path to perfection. Now, of course, Arjuna is an eternal associate of Krishna, which means that where Krishna goes for his Leela, Arjuna also goes. So Krishna's Leela happen all the time. It's like a clock. It just keeps happening all the time, one after the one universe after the other. So by the way, this is not the only universe that exists. Unlike our material scientists, they don't have much understanding about this. They just talk about one universe or a few galaxies and stuff like that. But Bhagavatam very clearly says that there are multiple unlimited universes, and in every universe the Lord appears to do his pastimes, Leela. So and when he goes, and all his eternal associates go with him because they have different roles to play. Right, so Arjuna is such an eternal associate. So he had no requirement like us to achieve any perfection in life. We need to achieve perfection in life, otherwise we'll rot in this material world. What is this material world? It is dukhalayam, right? It is full of misery, as we are very evidently seeing nowadays. Maybe previously people were under the illusion saying that no, this is a nice place to be in. Maybe they will again come back to this after a few years of, after once Corona goes. We don't know what is in store. But this is in general not a great place to be in. It is Bhagavatam, Padma Purana, I would describe it as Padam Padam Yat Vipadam, right? So every step there is danger in this material world. So we have to really think about getting out of this material world and not making a permanent residence here. Because this place itself is temporary. This material world is temporary. So there's no question of really settling down here, right? No question of settling down. So we like Arjuna had, we also have to have all these, help and mercy from the Lord, so that, we can actually achieve perfection in our life. And then 21 to 26 of chapter 1 is called Bhakta Vatsala. So Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. Bhakta Vatsala is very dear to his devotees. So he's very dear to his devotees because actually Krishna's another name is Achyuta. Achyuta means infallible, who doesn't fall down. He doesn't fall down from what? He's always ready to actually, show his affection to his devotees. See, Krishna's position is very unique. It's like he's like a, you can think of him like, maybe, if you want to understand, like, maybe president or prime minister. Now there are a lot of rules and regulations, right, that the government has imposed on general citizens. So these rules for us, we have to follow. Now suppose say somebody doesn't follow, and he's he's known to the president or prime minister. Now what happens? The president or prime minister is in a fix. right? Because he cannot make him escape the rule, right? Or he has to, he cannot just be partial to him and then pardon him and say, okay, this rule doesn't apply to you or something like that, right? Because then it will set a very wrong example, right? But similarly, in this whole material world, the laws of karma, are very stringent. They're very stringent. They are set up by these rules have been set up by the Lord, but they're extremely stringent. They're so stringent that nobody can even imagine escaping them, right? So these laws of karma is, so as you do, so you reap, right? Type of work that we do, either we do good work or bad work generally. If you do good work, we have good results. If you have bad work, we have bad results. And these rules are extremely stringent, and every moment we are being evaluated. We are afraid of this word evaluation. We think we are evaluated only in the exam or in an appraisal cycle, or no, we are being evaluated by the supreme laws of the Lord. We are being evaluated every moment. Every moment we are accumulating karma phala. Every moment we are accumulating something that is going to result in a good or bad future for us. Okay. Now, Krishna, why is he called Bhaktavatsala? Because Krishna's devotees, now Krishna is very neutral to this material world. Neutral meaning it's being run by his energies. So we will discuss these further in Bhagavad Gita. This whole material world is being run by his external energy. She's called Durga Devi. Right now, this whole and it runs under rules. It runs under rules. But Krishna is so dear to his devotees that he has given them a way out. Now, it's very interesting. He cannot be partial. He cannot break his own rule, his own law. Okay. So what he has created a by-law in some sense. He's created another law, which if we stick to that law, then he is given a escape route out of this, laws of nature, right? So he says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja, Am Tvam Sarva Papebhya Mokshayishyami Ma Sucha. So he's saying, see, all these laws of karma are there, and you have to undergo a lot of suffering. You have a lot of karma phala. But if you surrender unto me, I will give you a special privilege. I will give you a special privilege so that you can overcome these laws of nature. And he's saying, don't worry, I will take care of it. I will assure you. Now, one might question, okay, is this not some kind of partiality? In some sense, yes, but we should now think back saying that what is the reason for this, for the creation of this material world? The reason for creation of this material world, that it is a punishment for those who have actually gone against the rules of Krishna, laws of Lord. So those who have gone against the laws of the Lord are actually put here into this prison for undergoing a period of suffering. Now, what Krishna is giving, like a this. So in a jail, the superintendent, he'll come and say, okay, whoever does these things on a regular basis are disciplined, follow the rules, do these extra work, etc., etc. Their punishment will be cut. So similarly, Krishna is saying, okay, this is a jail, but since I am the owner, I'm giving you another option. If you surrender to me, follow my rules and regulations that I have laid down, specifically in Bhagavad Gita, surrender to me, then I will cut down your punishment. So he's Bhakta Vatsala. He's given because he's dear to those people who want to follow him, who want to become his devotee. So he's given us option for all of us. Right? Also, he's so fond of his devotees that he never bothers about his own position. In this battle, Arjuna, he became charioteer. Of course, before becoming charioteer, he became a messenger. He took up so many roles. He played so many roles. And of course, he was a friend of Arjuna. Arjuna later says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Krishna. I didn't know that you are the Supreme Lord. That I sat and joked with you. I made funny remarks at you. I commented at you. Kindly forgive me." But Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. If anybody serves him with love and affection, he doesn't matter to him what he's how he's treated. Actually, he finds happiness when his devotees treat him with an upper hand, saying, okay. So here Arjuna says, Krishna, kindly take this the chariot between the two armies, and Krishna is very happy, both because he got an order from Arjuna, and also he knows what's going to happen next, right? That his dear devotee is going to fall into illusion, and that he will speak the great instructions of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, so that we are all benefited. So he's Bhakta Vatsala, and this is one of the most, actually, Krishna's innumerable qualities, out of which 64 of them are significant. Out of the 64, this one actually supersedes all other qualities. Bhakta Vatsala, Bhakta Vatsalya. Okay. So he draws the chariot, and then Arjuna looks at all both the armies and sees all his relatives, etc. Then he falls into illusion. He falls into illusion of what? He falls into illusion of saying, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to do my duty. I'm a Kshatriya. So previously there used to be, this Varnashrama is not a caste system in the modern sense. It is based on guna and karma, based on quality and the action a person performs. Person falls into either a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Brahmana is simply Brahman Janati iti Brahmana, one who understands the meaning of life, understands Brahman, understands how to get there, get to the goal of life, and teaches it to others simplistically. And he's the intelligent class of men. Then there is Kshatriya, who are the administrative class of men. They are also intelligent, but they use their intelligence and they are more bodily capable to defend, protect people. They're protecting people from what? They're protecting people, actually, everybody in this, specifically, I mean, in this material one, and specifically in the human form of life. We are supposed to actually live our life to, in a way such that it will help us escape this, cycle of birth and death. And the king or the administrator's role is to ensure that people are able to do this, and he protects them from any kind of disturbance, external enemies, etc., so that they can regularly stick to their path of, sadhana, bhakti, of practicing bhakti, so that they can achieve the goal of life. So he was a Kshatriya, and then there's Vaishya, who's the business class, and Shudra, who, if they are not either the Shastrik intelligence, if they don't have Shastric intelligence, if they are not good administrators, or if they are not good businessmen, then they assist one of these three classes. So Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and his responsibility was to fight. But then he got into this illusion, saying that, oh, I have to fight, because he saw all his relatives, teachers, friends, family, etc. And he says, no, how can I fight? How can I fight? I cannot fight. So then Arjuna gives 5 reasons, actually 6 reasons. So 5 reasons are in the first chapter, 6th reason is in the second chapter. So he gives 5 reasons. So first he says compassion. Why should we kill? What is the need to kill? Right? They are my relatives, and what will I gain by just killing them? Right? So I'm not going to kill, right? I have too much of compassion for them. Then he has fear of sinful reactions. That is also there in later, right? So he says, if I kill, then this will result in a sin. Sin means suffering. So I don't want to do this. So he was very conscious about whether his action is going to result in punya or papa, which unfortunately people in Kali Yuga are not at all bothered, right? And previously, every act any man used to do, they used to be extremely concerned about this. Am I going to get punya or papa with this? Right? Then he says misfortune. See, I mean, if all of them are killed, then what will I do with this dynasty? I mean, I can't share it with anybody, and it just looks like it's a big misfortune. It doesn't look like it's a fortune for me. Right? And most important reason which most of us give for everything that we do in our life is enjoyment. Why do you do what you do? I do because it gives me enjoyment. Right? Everybody does to be happy, and their own definition of happiness, right? There's no universal law, so we think, but actually there is, right? But we think, okay, my way of enjoyment is different from somebody's way of enjoyment, but ultimately we all should just try to enjoy life. That is the whole idea, which is true. Prabhupada said, actually we are here to enjoy life, but not the way we are trying to. The way we are trying to enjoy life only results in suffering. But there is a superior way to enjoy life, which all of us should adopt to, because we are seeking happiness all the time. And it is our right to enjoy, because as spirit soul, because we are Atma, which we will talk about in second chapter, we are Satchidananda. we are full of happiness, but because we are got connected to this material world, and we sincerely believe that we are this body, which we are not, we are actually suffering. So yes, we need enjoyment, but not the way people are seeking enjoyment in this material world. And finally, he says, see, if I kill these elders, all the elders are there on the other side. If I kill these elders, then all the elders are killed. Then by killing the elders, then the whole family goes into irreligion, because elders are supposed to take care of, you know, family traditions, making sure that the children follow the right dharmic path, etc., etc. So if elders are killed, then the people of the family just, they'll engage in irreligion. They'll engage in irreligion, then, you know, there'll be unscrupulous men who will then may spoil other women. Then it will result in Varna Sankara, which is unwanted population. Then because of this unwanted population, people will stop Shraddha Kriya and other traditions, which is very much evident in Kali Yuga. People don't do this annual Shraddha for their ancestors, forefathers. And it says, you know, once if they don't do it, then their ancestors also fall down, they also fall down. And it is very sinful not to do this. Right? So, and then he says, you know, like this, the whole society will go for a toss. It will result in destruction of social values, community, which we are seeing very evidently in Kali Yuga. So he says, you know, there are so many of these reasons why I should not be fighting. Krishna, I can't. I just can't fight. And he just puts his bow aside, Gandiva bow aside, and then he just sits on the chariot. That's the end of chapter 1. Okay, so that was a summary. Now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of recap on chapter 2. So we'll first sections. So first is he has further doubts which he expresses, and he also gives the 6th reason for not fighting. He says, I'm not sure, right? Whether I should fight or not. Then 11 through 30, Krishna talks about body and soul. Then there is discussion about what is called karma kanda, which I'll come to. Then there is discussion about nishkama karma. Then there is long discussion about buddhi yoga. Okay. And in the middle of that buddhi yoga, there's also a brief discussion about nishkama karma yoga. And then there is sthita pragna, last few verses. So we'll go through this one by one. So the first section is Arjuna's further doubts and surrender. So finally, Arjuna surrenders after expressing more doubts. So it already expressed 5 doubts. He'll express further doubts here, and then he surrenders. Right? So Arjuna is lamenting. He's full of compassion and he's lamenting. Right? And then Prabhupada says material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self, which means that we really don't know who we are. We think we are the body. We think we are this body. So we are always in what we call material compassion. That means linked to this body, me and mine. Right? So we are always engaged in compassion for others. Okay, let's feed the poor, let's do this, let's do that, which is all good, but which is all on the material platform, just for the body. And then if something happens to somebody, then we are, you know, we lament for them, we cry for them. But for whom? For actually the body of those people. And Prabhupada says compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. So which means if we really have compassion towards somebody, which is what we keep telling every week, if you really have compassion to somebody, if you, you know, you care for somebody, please give them the compassion of self-realization, which means that bring them to Krishna Bhakti. Because compassion, see, beautiful sentence, compassion for the dress of a drowning man is useless. So what is the use? If somebody is drowning and we try to catch hold of his dress instead of catching hold of him, what is the use of that? So this body is compared to the dress of a drowning man. So what is the use if you are simply rescuing the outward dress, which is the body, which would actually rescue the soul, so to speak, right? So then, you know, now Arjuna is now lamenting, he's saying, no, I don't want to fight. Krishna says, these are all impurities. These are all impurities. This is not right for you. You're a Kshatriya. You're not supposed to be living and saying these things. Then in this verse, actually, the verse starts with Sri Bhagavanu Vacha, Kutastva Kasmalamidam Vishame Samupastitam Manarya Justam Aswargyam Akirtim Karam Arjuna. So Bhagavanu Vacha. So in the purport, we talk about how there are 3 phases of understanding of the absolute truth. The first is Brahman realization. And South India was, because of Sripad Shankaracharya, South India was full about Brahman realization. And people used, and even today also, a lot of people talk about becoming one with Brahman. Now, becoming one with Brahman is the entry level of 3 phases, 3 levels of understanding. It is the entry level. Second level is actually Paramatma realization. Paramatma is the expansion of the Lord in everybody's heart. Normally, it's called Paramatma in multiple languages, and he can be realized. The first process of Brahman realization is through what is called as Gnana Yoga. The second process of Paramatma realization is through Dhyana Yoga. And then there's a third level of realizing the personality of Krishna or Godhead. He is called Bhagavan, and that is through the process of Bhakti Yoga. And Bhagavan is actually Parashara Muni says Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Sriyaha Jnana Vairagyayoschaiva Shannam Bhagavatingana. There are 6 qualities, right? If they are present in full in a person, he is called Bhagavan. Aishwarya, opulence, Veera, valor, Yashas, fame, Shriya, beauty, Gnana, knowledge, Vairagya, renunciation. So if these 6 qualities are there in somebody in full, all qualities parallelly, simultaneously in full, that person is called Bhagavan. Okay, and so then there are Prabhupada gives supports from various scriptures like Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita. He says, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Krishna, he is the supreme. Right, of course, then Krishna, Vishnu, we don't want to get into this Krishna Vishnu debate. We are okay. Vishnu Tattva. Okay. Now, then he says, how have these impurities come? And he says that one who lives captivated by the external features of this material world, he's called an Anaryan. Aryan is one who is not very attached to this material world, and Anaryan is one who is attached to this material world. And then Krishna tells Arjuna in verse 2.3, he says, don't yield to this degrading impotence. It is just, it is not right for you. It's just a weakness of heart. So he says, give up this petty weakness of heart and arise. So this is very important, actually. This is a call to action. Give up petty weakness of heart. We are also, stuck in this petty weakness of heart. What is this petty weakness of heart? Weakness of heart to say that, I want to just enjoy life, easy way. I should not have any difficulties, problems, let everything go nicely. And then when somebody says, no, there's a higher path, there is bhakti, he says, no, I don't want all that. This is weakness, because they think, oh, see, if I take up something like bhakti and all, then I will have to give up my current ways of life, which I'm so happy leading. So I don't want. So Krishna is saying, no, all of you, this line is for everybody who's suffering in this material world. He's saying, give up petty weakness of heart and arise. Arise. Get up. Don't be in slumber of material enjoyment. Get up. Right? It's a call to action. And then he goes on, and of course, then Arjuna argues further, saying that, I don't know, I don't want to fight. Then finally in 2.6, 2.7, he says, I don't know what is better. So you tell me what is better, because I am confused now. I'm confused about my duty. So I'm not very sure now. Should I fight? Should I not fight? Because I've been arguing so much, but I'm not very sure. So he says, Karpanya dosho pata swabhava prachami tvam dharma sammuda cheta yashreyasya nishchitam bruhitanme shishyasteham shadimam prantvam prapannam. So he says that, I'm confused about my duty. I'm confused about my duty because I lost all composure. I lost composure because of miserly weakness of heart. But he says, now I'm surrendering unto you as a shishya. This word shishya is very important. Shishya means discipline. It comes from this shishash dhatu, which says discipline. So he's saying, I'm surrendering unto you. Surrender means completely ready to accept Krishna's instructions, not putting his own intelligence in the middle, saying, no. Krishna says something. He says, no, Krishna, but I think, no, this I think should not exist, because there's no value for this I think. Because we are, mortal beings, and we have so many frailties in us. We cannot really think. We have to simply accept the authorities. We can use our intelligence, not to create ideas, but to try and understand the instructions that Krishna has given. Nobody is saying that we should become blind or just simply blindly surrender. No, absolutely not. Like we will see in the approach Arjuna has taken, he so humbly asks questions to Krishna, saying, Krishna, by the way, you said this, but I'm not able to understand this. Can you please clarify? That humility and service attitude has to be there. Only then we can understand supreme spirit, superior spiritual knowledge. So he's saying, I am surrendering to you. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. Please instruct me. Instruct me. Don't give me suggestions. So this is another very important thing. See, spiritual life is about just taking instructions. It is discipline, being disciplined and taking instructions from superior authorities. But we are so in this material world, so much trained not to surrender to anybody, to be independent, to have independent thinking. But Shastra doesn't say that. Shastra says you can have independent thinking in the way of saying that, you have to serve the Lord. Now you can have, okay, I'm going to create a beautiful garland like this. Somebody can have a different idea. That is fine. That is using our creativity, intelligence in serving. But how, how the service has to be done, that is more or less guideline. That guidelines have been given. So it's a framework in some sense. You can think about it as a framework, right? So you can fit into the framework. You can't go outside the framework, but within the framework, within the, the boundaries of what Shastra has given, we can be creative. Creative in the sense not to deviate the rules. And some of these words have to be clarified because, in modern world, we use these words very differently. So you can be creative about your thoughts means not that we break the rules. Within the rules, we can show our skill, our ability, and, nicely serve the Lord. Right. But there is no question of thinking outside the box, like we say. No thinking outside the box. It's all within the box. But the box is so huge that it will take lifetimes for us to understand this box itself. So Krishna, Arjuna is saying here, I am surrendering to you. I please instruct me. You please tell me Shreya, Shreyas. Shreyas, there are two words in Sanskrit, Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas means long-term benefit, like I should be benefited forever, not just in this war or this moment. Unfortunately, most of us take this prayers route. Right? Today, I want things to be okay. Tomorrow is okay. We will bother about tomorrow. Next life, oh, nobody cares about next life. Nobody is aware of next life, right? But Shreyas means not just next life, eternally, till I get out of this material world. That is Shreyas. Right? And so Krishna Arjuna is saying, you please tell me and give me instructions which are Shreyas, which will bring Shreyas to me. Not temporary happiness, long-term happiness. Right? And in this purport is very important. By the way, all of you should have Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is Bhagavad Gita as it is. This Bhagavad Gita is as it is very important because it has purports, which are actually commentaries given by Srila Prabhupada, who is our Acharya, founding Acharya of ISKCON. And this book has come in Parampara, which we'll talk about later in 4th chapter. But this book has come in Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. All spiritual knowledge should come in a Sampradaya. And there are 4 authorized Sampradayas that exist right now, Vaishnava Sampradayas. Vaishnava Sampradayas means Sampradayas or disciplic successions which are focused on worshipping Vishnu. One is Brahma, then there is Rudra from Shiva, then there is Sri Sampradaya, which is from Lakshmi, and then there is Kumara Sampradaya. So mostly Sri Sampradaya is still prominent, and Brahma Sampradaya, which is ISKCON, and also Madhva Sampradaya, both Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. Right? So this book has come, and Prabhupada gives enlightening purport. So you should please read this. If you don't have a copy, we'll be happy to courier it, etc. It's also available online. Please reach out to us. You can, even now in the chat, drop a message if anybody is interested, and we can get in touch with you and do the needful. Okay, so 2.7, Prabhupada writes saying that in every step there is perplexity. What is perplexity? Perplexity is just confusion. I don't know. We are always in this decision-making mode. Should I take the vaccine or should I not? Should I go left? Should I go right? Right? And here Prabhupada says that in every step there is perplexity. Now, but he says one should approach a bona fide spiritual master. Bona fide means authentic, authorized, genuine spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. Now, what is the connection between perplexities and purpose of life? Because these perplexities, without having a purpose of life, these perplexities will keep taking us left, right, left, right. Now, we don't know what our goal is. Suppose, say you get out of your house on a vehicle and you keep driving, and suddenly, you see you take a left, then you take a right, you take a left, you keep going like this. Now, if you don't know where you are headed towards, then you will just end up somewhere else, right? So that is why before we go to the house, we know where we want to go. Similarly, in this material world also, we should know where we are heading towards, right? And a spiritual master, a guru, will help us actually execute the purpose of life. So because we know the goal, we know what we want to achieve, he will help us through these perplexities. Spiritual master is not one who is supposed to be consulted for material problems. No, he's supposed to be consulted for how to, you know, in spite of material problems, whatever they exist, how do we progress towards our goal? That guidance a guru gives, right? And all Vedic literatures advise us to approach a guru. Without approaching a guru, we cannot achieve perfection in life. So all of you here who've been coming to these classes regularly, etc., this is a very important next step for all of us. That you accept guru. So if you are interested, if you want to know more, you can kindly contact me and we can discuss further. Okay. So these perplexities, they happen like forest fire, which means that they just suddenly start, right? You don't know where, you don't foresee, right? Suddenly problem starts from somewhere, right? It's like a forest fire and it just blazes, right? And actually this forest fire example is very apparent, very apt, because forest fire, sometimes there's one tree is on fire, then the tree next to it might not be on fire, because the fire like jumps from one tree to some other tree, right? So like this, why does the fire jump from only one tree to another tree? Because that tree is destined to be destroyed based on its karma phala, right? Of course, trees don't have karma phala, but that example is given. So similarly, in human life, we don't have to look at everybody around us and say, okay, because this happened to that person, it's also going to happen to me. No, not required, right? Because we might not have the same karma phala. Of course, if you have similar, or if you have to suffer at the same time with a similar issue, etc., we might. But generally, there's no rule that if somebody else is suffering, we also have to suffer. It's just based on our karma phala. At appropriate time, we keep getting happiness and distress, right? So it keeps happening, and just like happiness comes without our does happiness ask us permission, saying that can I please come, and what will we say? We'll grab with both hands. No, we don't have a choice, right? Happiness also comes at its time, distress also comes at its time, right? And one who knows this, actually, he should know that Prabhupada uses this word skin disease. We should not be only just simply attached to family, right? This is kripana. This word is called kripana, right? Because most people don't want to think about spiritual life and all that, because they're just so engaged in their family life, right? It's a skin disease, right? Because it's all coming from the skin, right? Body, offshoot of the body, children, family, etc., etc., and we just stuck with that. We don't want to think about anything else. But this human form of life is a valuable asset, which is to help us solve the real problems of life. What are real problems of life? Real problems of life are Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, disease. Not my maid didn't come, my vehicle got punctured, or some small problems here and there, which is not universal. It might happen to you, it might not happen to your neighbor, right? But the real problems are defined as nobody wants it, but nobody can avoid it. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants birth, death, old age, disease, but nobody can avoid it. So human form of life is meant to make a solution of this problem, not simply waste our life. Like actually, Shastra says that ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha. If we just live eating, mating, sleeping, defending like animals, that life is animalistic life. So we have to not live an animalistic life, but we have to live a life meant for human beings, which is of a responsibility. Human life is about responsibility. Live responsibly. Live in a way to get out of this material world. That is the responsibility of human life. Okay, but then Arjuna surrenders, saying, he says, oh no, I can't find any other way to get out of this grief. Only you can do this. Kindly help me, kindly guide me. Yeah, and Prabhupada says that as friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other, right? And this knowledge, this talk between the master and disciple happened openly between the two armies. So it looks like Bhagavad Gita is for all people, not just for some Indians or Hindus or nothing like that, right? For all human beings, this is meant for this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is why interestingly, mostly only in ISKCON, right, we find devotees from all over the world. I mean, even from Muslim countries, other places, because they understand, they realize that, okay, this is talking to the soul. It's not restricted to my country of birth, my color, my language, gender, etc., etc., right? It's for every human being. And Bhagavad Gita is manual for human life, so it is meant for every human being, so that he can use it and make a perfection of his life. So when Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, so the first thing Krishna talks about, which is called ABCD of spiritual life, he starts talking about body and soul. Before that, of course, he scolds Arjuna. It's the duty of a spiritual master to put the student in his place. Everybody thinks they know everything, right? Arjuna spent one chapter, 46 verses, 44 verses, and then few verses, the first 10 verses in the first chapter, second chapter, to just try and put forth so much of his arguments. Of course, he was very learned. He was a very learned person, but we are also like this. We think, I know this, I somehow, here and there we would have read something half baked knowledge, and we think we know everything, right? No. So here first he says, you are talking like a very wise man, very learned man. You're talking like a very learned man, but you're acting like a fool. You're acting like a fool because a wise person doesn't lament for the living or the dead. Such a bold statement. Says wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Now, if somebody reads this statement, they'll say, oh, what is this? Krishna is telling everybody to become insensitive. Don't care for anybody. Just live selfish life for yourself. No, Krishna is even including us also. Even don't care you for yourself also, right? You should understand this. So here, what this means is that we should not look at everything around us on the platform of the body. That's what Krishna is saying here. Arjuna has been talking only on the platform of the body. Krishna comes here and says, don't talk like a fool. Only fools talk about on the material platform. Wise talk on the spiritual platform, right? So he says, now let's talk about the platform of the soul. So then he says, natvevam jatunasam natvam neme janadipa natchaiva nabhavishyamaha sarve vayam mataparam. He says, we are all eternal. We are all eternal. You, me, all these kings were assembled here. We were there in the past. We are there today. We will continue to exist in the future. This is a big jolt, right? And when I came into Krishna consciousness and heard this, I feel so happy, saying, oh, I will exist in the future also. That means that I don't have death. Yes, there is no death for us because we are not this body. So then he says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe, just this body, we are a soul and we just have this body. It is like an encapsulation. It's like a vehicle. And we just keep changing this body from, from one body to another. We keep changing. It's like, rental house. We're just moving from house to house, right? And this change in body is called death. That's it. So soul just decides to change its body. This is death. So one doesn't have to be too bewildered by this. Oh, I'm going to lose everything. Now, why do people get bewildered by this change called death? Because we are too attached. We're too attached. And this attachment is illusion, because we know we've seen so many people before us, in front of us, etc. People have come and gone. Our ancestors, You know, some maybe our parents, elders, grandparents, etc. They've come and gone. When they came, they didn't have anything. When they went, they didn't take anything. So we know that we are not going to take, we're not going to be able to take anything. And we also know that this is, we say as sure as death, that everybody has to die. One day or the other, everybody has to die. A sober person, so one who is in knowledge, he is not bewildered by this. He just looks at, says, okay, I'm going to just lose my body. That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm not going to lose myself because I am the spirit soul. I'm eternal. And this is the whole process of rebirth, right? And based on karma that we have done in one life, we achieve, we enjoy or suffer in our next lives. So we have to be very responsible about what we do. We cannot just think, okay, this is one life show, so let me just freak out. Who cares? Who knows what next life is? I don't know. I can't remember also my previous life. So why should I believe that there's a next life? Right? So this is ignorance. So he's saying, you know, we are just embodied. We just have this body, and then next life we'll get another body. That's it. Hmm? And he says that, you know, while you have this body, you will have problems, which is a given. Why? Because you've done work in your previous life, which might result in suffering. So he says, Matra Sparshasta Konteya Sitoshna Sukadukada Agama Painon Anityastam Stitikshasva Bharata. This is the one of the biggest lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Biggest. After we know that I am not this body, the most important thing that we have to do is titiksha. We have to tolerate. This is, you know, I mean, I can't stress enough this importance of this titiksha. Simple things that will, you know, start making us realize that I'm not this body, right? If suppose say we are a bit unwell for whatever reason, you know, stomach ache or headache or whatever, right? We have to just tolerate it. Don't take a medicine. Just be with the pain. I mean, this might seem like sadistic, but you know, like just tolerate, you know, because actually as first is as human beings, we have that strength to tolerate. Second thing is when we are tolerating, we suddenly realize that after some time, we realize, okay, this pain is there. It's okay. It's not like a big deal. I said, it will go when it has to go. Because these suffering and happiness is like seasons. It has a specific time when it will come. It has a specific time when it will go. Automatically, it will go. We don't have to bother about it actually. You know, but we'll go crazy if you don't act. So we are said, okay, fine, you know, act, but be tolerant. But if you don't, if you become intolerant, then we might take wrong decisions. We might do wrong things. Like people are going haywire crazy today about this, you know, corona, because of fear. You might take a wrong decision, right? So tolerate as much as possible. Tolerate knowing this. I am not this body. I am spirit soul. It's like my vehicle. If my vehicle is hit or there's a puncture or something, I'm not going to keep fretting over it, right? It's fine, you know, I have to get it repaired. I'll take it to wherever I have to go, and that's it, right? But we don't like just make that as the sole reason for our existence. So Krishna is saying, I mean, and I will spend another 5 minutes on this, right? And we'll continue the recap in the next class, right? This tolerance actually, which is why in India, you know, our tolerance levels all went down because of various reasons, right? Because this whole spiritual culture was born in India, right? I mean, this is Punya Bhumi. Various reasons. So one is, for example, this allopathy medicine. It was a big, you know, hit on this titiksha because there's a crocin for everything, or a dolo or whatever, right? Just pop it. So no question of tolerating any pain, no question of tolerating any suffering, right? Then after Britishers came, everything had to be happen like this because they said, you know, systems, everything has to be systems, institutionalized, this, that. Now we want everything to happen like this. You know, it has gone to such an extent that people have become actually gone the other end. You know, while these might be useful in, if you create good systems, you know, you don't have to waste your time, use your time meaningful, doing meaningful things, etc., which is good. But we've taken this to such an extent that we are intolerant about every small thing. Simple thing is a traffic signal. People are simply intolerant. They can't just wait for 10 seconds after the light turns green. 10 seconds. I observe this every signal. Bam, 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 bam. They start honking. Like every scenario, situation in life, you just think about it. We are so impatient. We are so impatient. We can't accommodate other people. Sometimes I've seen, like, you'll be in a line for something, somebody, the old person or somebody is whatever, due to some, can I go forward in the line? I'm not. No, no, no. We are in a line. Please wait. Then, like humanity, because this intolerance, we just can't tolerate. We can't accommodate anybody. It's all about me and myself, complete self-centered life. So Krishna is saying here, see, problems will come. You can't escape problems. And they are temporary. Happiness will also come. Distress will also come. Both are temporary. Don't bother about them. Actually, why do they arise? There's a beautiful sentence Krishna says. He says they arise from sense perception. What is his sense perception? So we have the skin. There is a sense of touch, right? There's a sense of vision, etc., etc. We have all these senses, right? So because of this perception of the senses, we are actually experiencing what is happiness or suffering, right? So if I pinch my hand, then because of a sense of the skin, I experience pain. So it's all just because of sense perception, right? Like I like cold, I don't like heat. I mean, because it's just how my body area. So it's all just based on senses. And mind is also one of the senses. So sometimes we think, oh, I like this, so I think I like this, so I like it. After a few years, maybe I might change my thinking and say, no, I don't like it. Then same thing we might start disliking. So it's all in the mind. It's all with respect to this body, and it's all temporary. It's nothing to do with ourselves. It's nothing to do with us, the soul. It's nothing to do with the soul. It's all temporary. It's a perception, right? And it just comes and goes, and we just need to learn to tolerate, because we are not the body. But till we have got this body, we have to tolerate pains and pleasures that come to this body. Now, Krishna is saying this just in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Why? He's saying, see, you are not the body. Don't think you're the body. You're not the body. You're spirit soul. Now, because you're not the body, but you still have a body, you're going to have suffering. But remember that you are not the body, you're spirit soul. And remember that this body is just a vehicle, and just deal with that problem with giving it only so much importance. Knowing that you are spirit soul, you are not question of destroying spirit soul. Right? So we should remember this. So there's a lot more. So we'll continue again in next class. So we'll stop here. We'll again continue from here next week. Again, and those devotees here who have been hearing this again and again, I realize, I mean, after so many years in Krishna consciousness, I still realize that I don't realize that I am the soul. Right? So it's very, and Prabhupada in his lectures every time, he just talks about you're not this body, you're spirit soul. Somebody asked Prabhupada, why are you like, haven't you said this before? He says, yes, but you don't understand. You're simply hearing from this side and leaving from this. Each and every day in the life of a devotee, this question comes, this thought comes. Am I the body? Am I the soul? Most of the times because we forget this knowledge, we act on the platform of the body. So why this is important? Because so that we can write in bold in front of us, I am not this body, I am spirit soul. And everything that we do, the way we think, the way we do things, everything has to be based on this knowledge. This is A, B, C, D of spiritual life, because we are spirit. Atma is spirit. Okay. So I shall stop here, verse 14. Maybe I'll just make a mark here. So we can continue from here next class. Okay. So I will stop here. If anybody has any questions, comments, happy to take. Hare Krishna.